Hello and welcome. I'm Lee LaBay, founder of the Integrative Healing Arts Academy. In this video, I'm joined by one of my graduates of the Integrative Hypnotherapy and Past Life Regression Professional Training course, Graham Robinson. Today, we're discussing fascinating and perhaps little-known aspects of reincarnation. If you're curious about reincarnation and discovering who you may have been in other lifetimes, stay with us. There's so much to explore, as we were just talking. So, Graham, please introduce yourself, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, hi, Mary Lee. As you said, Graham Robinson, and I've been certified through your course both for hypnotherapy and, of course, for past life regression work. And I must admit, as I've said before, the reason I came to your courses was because of past life work and the knowledge you have. But it opens every time you talk about it, even when you talk about it, I have so many more questions. And why this? Why not that? How does this happen? And of course, there are so many questions around it. But today this is an area I don't fully understand. I have to be honest, and it's great to be able to talk to you about it. And that's about when a child is in embryo, does a spirit enter then, or does it wait until the child is born? How does that work?
It's a very interesting topic, and there is no single answer. So when the embryo is starting to form, there's no guarantee that there is a spirit attached, but there could be. All right. So it could attach immediately. Oftentimes, I've worked with people, and in the research that I've done, where the spirit, or they as the incoming spirit, wants to ensure that they are with that set of parents, and so they are really just ready. So when the embryo starts to form, they're attaching right away. In other cases, the spirit may not be attached immediately. It may come in at any point during the pregnancy. And I have examples of that too, but we could get into that later. But as long as that embryo, that baby that's being formed, is available, as long as there's not another spirit already attached to it, then that becomes an available place to come in.
So a embryo can go through to full maturity before birth, be born, and then a spirit could attach to it. Um,
Yeah, it could. And it could be that a spirit attaches to the embryo and then changes its mind and it leaves. And then another one, attaches. The example I was going to give is when my father died, I watched his progress, his journey for quite some time. And there's a much bigger story that I go into in my books, but um, the pertinent part of that in this discussion is one of the times that he attached to a baby was just days before it was born. So, I know that that happened. You know, he decided he needed to incarnate and attach to that available baby and was born. There is the bigger story, but anyway,
mm.
so that was when I started getting curious about this topic. It's like, oh, 2 or 3 days before the baby is born, it's now getting a spirit attached. And what I learned was that um, it can happen at any point. It could happen later on after the birth, um, but hopefully there's a spirit attached to any child or any human, any incarnated human. um yeah, that we assume there are spirits. I suppose it's possible there is not.
If so a spirit decides that it's going to attach to this embryo, during that 9-month period, or whatever it may take, can the spirit come and go? Can the spirit leave that body and come back in for some reason? And do you know what reason that might be?
Right. If it detaches completely, it runs the risk of some other spirit attaching, and then it's no longer available. But what does happen, I know, is that the baby might astral project, just like we do in our sleep. It may astrally travel and not be, completely present and aware in the womb constantly. So just like in a dream state or whatever, and it could astral project and go, but it would probably still be attached. If it wants that body, it would keep itself attached.
See, you've just raised another thought that I'd like to put, because I've always had this view that, and as much as I believe in past lives and I've experienced them, so I know they're real, but I've always thought that the spirit world is very organized, like a chain event. So you go into a body, then the next spirit's waiting to go into another body. But
Oh,
obviously, from what you say, it's not like that. It's quite disorganized, and the spirit will go wherever.
yeah. No, the universe is really a lot more complex than even our human brains can fathom, right? And when you're out there, of course, time is not chronological. There's a whole lot of different things that are happening. But yeah, I know that there are people who write books that make it sound like we're on a conveyor belt, right? And that these people are saying, okay, you're going here, you're going there, this is the lesson you're going to learn, and putting you, assigning you, that sort of thing. And that's not really what happens.
Ah, another one of my beliefs shot down. Thank you,
Oh,
Mary Lou.
oh.
These very early memories, are you able to take somebody back, if they come to you for help or just come to you for out of interest into the time they were in the embryo and remember that time?
Yes, I've done many, many regressions where they go back into the embryo. One of my clients um, said she was, getting ready to be birthed, and she didn't want to be born. And she said, "It's like I'm just gripping on, and I'm turned myself, butt first, right, breech." And she said, "I'm just doing everything I can to not leave the womb." And she you know saw in her regression that she had been born breech, but she did not know that consciously. So she went to her mother and asked her, and it was true, she was born breech. And so it was kind of interesting to get that confirmation. Other stories, I remember a client years ago who remembered being in the womb, and her mother was walking along the beach. I think it was a very indigenous kind of lifetime, and she was walking along the beach and squatted down and had the baby right there on the beach, and my client was the baby, so she remembered that whole thing of being birthed. Um, Trying to remember some other incidences. But yeah, you can go in, and sometimes with people that are in really dysfunctional families, they will go back into that womb and, will work on the messaging and what their, like my mother doesn't really want me, or my father, I can tell, is abusing my mother. A lot of the conceptions and the ideas and perspectives that the baby is getting even while they're in the womb and then coming into the lifetime.
Can you undertake healing on the baby in the embryo, and with the spirit? So you can go if someone comes to you, a lady who is pregnant 6 or 7 months, and there has been some concern, whether it be physical. I mean, it may even be she may even think because she is in an environment that may be abusive or something else, or she took drugs possibly for a while, and she wants to come and make sure the baby's healthy. Can you find that out for them? Can you work
Yeah,
with them?
yeah, we can do that. I don't remember having a client who had taken drugs, like that was the situation. But one of my favorite examples is a woman who was 9 months pregnant. She was ready to deliver, and the baby was not moving into position and getting ready. And so, the doctor was like, if we don't do something pretty soon, it'll have to be cesarean. And so she came to me and I did hypnosis, and we set up a communication between her and the baby, the embryo. Are they embryos at that point? Isn't there another term? My mind is not picking it up.
Yeah, I guess once it's formed, yes, I guess it is the baby, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
gestational. Yeah, they're
Or the fetus.
fetus, I guess
Yeah.
that's the word we're looking for. Um, so she was talking to this child inside of her, and we started. She saw this whole scene develop, right? And so the child was, in his mind, it was a little boy. In his mind, he was in like an enclosed playground, and he was on a swing, and he was just, having a really good old time. And then he said, and the the playground is getting smaller and smaller. And I think it was that he was getting bigger and bigger, and it was
Mm.
getting more crowded. I have an allergy. Excuse me just a minute. I'm reacting to something. So he was experiencing this area getting smaller and smaller. And in his mind, he was communicating with his mother. He was saying, I can see that there's a gate to get out of the yard, but I don't want to go through the gate because on the other side, it seems very dark and scary. And so I had, some questions for the mother, and I asked her, what is it that you're thinking about the world? And she said, oh, okay, yeah. I keep worrying that I'm bringing a child into a very, negative world. We've got wars and all these things going on. And so, it was her concerns about what he would be coming into. And so we determined that he was listening to that, he was picking up on her concerns. And so she visualized then that it would be a bright, welcoming, and it would be a big party, and it's going to be so much fun. And she changed that whole environment on the outside of the fence, right, of this wall that he was in. And he started saying, okay, well, I think I'll go through, but I'm afraid I can't get through the gate, that I'm too big. And so she said, well, we're going to put a ladder on the wall. And if you can't go through the gate, we're going to let you, we're going to take you out through the ladder, which of course would represent this Caesarean.
Mm.
And he said, okay. And he said, okay, I'll try. And so I asked the baby, the fetus, will you come out through the gate in the next 24 hours? And he said, no. I said, how about 2 days? No. How about 3 days? Will you come out? And he said, yes, I'll come out in 3 days. He was born 3 days later. It was exact. And he came out through the gate. Everything went fine. Um, but, that's how we can work with babies who are not positioning themselves right, or, are having some struggle, or are having some concerns about coming out into this world, or about what the environment in the family
Mm.
is, right?
Well, that leads into my next question, really, because um, we obviously have children born into abusive environments and families. Why do you think a spirit chooses that, or does it know it's choosing that, or is it a surprise when it gets into a family like that?
Again, the universe is very, there's a big variety out here, right? So some people, I don't know about most, but a lot of people are really not that conscious about their choices. Oftentimes when they're out there, they just want to get back in a body. Either they feel disoriented, or there's some kind of fear, or there's a longing to connect again with their soul family or get back to their purpose or something. And so they may just drop into a body that's available, right? So, there's a lot of things that are going on. So one of the things well, I tell my students, but also my clients, is how you make decisions here in your life is how you're going to make decisions out there. So, unless you learn something new. So if you're not a very good decision maker, you need to work on that, right? Or if you always turn your decisions over to someone else, well, you decide, you'll probably do that out there. You'll wait for somebody to tell you where to go. Or if you're afraid to make a decision, you may just be hesitating all the time. So, or if you're addicted to something, you're going to make the decision based on, can I have access to that alcohol, drugs, shopping, sex, whatever it is, and I'll just go into anybody that will allow me to have
Uh,
that.
So that's a good point, I suppose, when it comes to healing those addictions, isn't it? That what
Mm,
you've just said is that the spirit looks for some family that will allow them to explore that addiction continuously. So
mhm.
you could go back through several lives where you find the same spirit doing that. To heal them, you have to go back until the original decision or whatever caused them to do it, don't you? So that's
Right.
fascinating in itself. Um, I know we can't tell, always how people will develop after they're born, but of course some people turn into very nasty people, into bad people, as we know. Others just life has an impact upon them. Do spirits know that? Do you think as well, that they are coming back to, or they're actually I don't want to use the word bad spirit, but I can't think of anything else. But they actually have a bad part of their spirit and they want to be bad when they come back. Is that possible?
Right. I mean, different people will have different morality, and what we carry with us through all these lifetimes is our character. So if it's ingrained in our character, like the alcohol, and it's in many different lifetimes, then we're going to have that here. And in, someone with that predilection to be evil, to be bad, to be destructive to other people, they're going to want to come in and have another opportunity to do that, right?
Okay.
Because it's part of their character. And in fact, when I'm working with spirits that are attached to a person, like a possession or an attachment, that is negative, oftentimes when I talk to that spirit, and I start exploring who they are and where they've come from, oftentimes they were abused in another lifetime. And now they've come, and they haven't gotten their own body, but they're attached, like a possession, to somebody else, and they're imposing that kind of abuse on that person. And sometimes it's just that they're evil, and sometimes it's that that was the habit they learned. So they
Mm,
were indoctrinated into that behavior, but they don't really want it. So then the therapy is, well, we'll do therapy on the spirit so that it can go on and incarnate and be a good person. So I have a reputation in the spirit world of being the therapist to the spirits. Sometimes they, I've had I had a client come in and the spirit actually made them make the appointment because it wanted to be released. And it said, I wanted to get out of here, but I didn't know how. So I made sure that she made this appointment so that you could help me. So
It, so you've broken another of my myths now. I always believed that when a spirit passed on, when your body dies, and you go into the universe or into the spirit world, that you would actually clean up some of the bad behavior you had. But of
not
course, no. Thank you
not
very
as
much.
part of
Now
your
you've
character. No, you got to work on it.
okay.
You have to do the
Um,
lessons and work on that.
just final question. And look, I mean, we quite honestly, you could spend hours discussing this and all the different options, but children often talk about imaginary friends. We all seem to say that, when you were young, you had them. Do you, and then they sort of disappear as we grow up for most of us, not all of us, but most of us, I guess. Do you believe that is past life memory or spirit, other spirits coming in? Or is it just imaginary friends that they may have?
Again, it depends on the child. It depends on the situation. I don't think there's a blanket rule for a lot of these things. But oftentimes the children are so in their subconscious mind until the age of 11, they're just, half out of their body most of the time, right? And they're very connected to the spirit world. And so I think for the most part, those are spirits that are coming around and playing with the child or, checking in on the child. It could be a friend from another lifetime or a parent or a sister or something, sister, brother. Um, or it could just be a random spirit that also wants to be entertained. And, playing around with children is so much fun, right? So, uh, so they see those spirits.
Yep, I wanted to ask this question. I wasn't sure whether I should or not, but I will ask. So, if we suffer a stillbirth, does the spirit know that is going to happen, or is that more a physical thing that happens because of the mother and child?
Well, it could be physical, something could have happened to the mother or something in the physical world. Um, uh, Also, the child may change their mind about coming in and then, abandon the embryo, and then it becomes a stillborn. There's no life being, well, there's life in the physical body, but the spirit has left it, and then then it passes away. My father was the one, so he got into that body that I told you about. He attached just a couple days before before the birth, and when he got into the body, he realized within days that this was the wrong situation. And he actually died. That baby died. So they would chalk that up as crib death. But he came in with a certain expectation of the family life and the opportunities that he would have. And when he got there, he realized he had made a mistake and exited that body. And actually, in that particular case, because I was really monitoring it from the astral, I don't know the family, but what I could tell was it was a teen pregnancy, and the kids were going to get married because they had to. And so when he died, and it was a baby girl, but when the baby died, um, at first I was like, oh my God, they must feel so terrible. And then I realized they were relieved. It was like, okay, we don't have to go through this. We don't have to get married. So
Mm,
I think, in some cases, it's a mutual agreement that we're not going to proceed here, or it could be the baby changed his mind, or it could be some other physical problem, lack of
mm.
oxygen or something. So,
like all things, there's no easy answer to anything.
Exactly. Right.
Well, thank you. I mean, as I said, we could explore this one subject for hours and all of them. And our next subject, in fact, could be explored for days, because I believe we're going to talk about how you can determine life purpose and core values through your past lives.
Yeah,
I'll be looking forward to that because I'll have to get some tips off you, I think.
well, I'm full of tips. I did want to make one other point when we were
Sure.
talking about why people come into abusive lifetimes, and I gave some examples. But there is another situation that a client came to me with, and she had been in a very abusive family. I mean, really abusive, and uh, and she said, I just don't get it. I want to go into the past lives to figure out what I did wrong. Why do I have this horrible karma to put me in this situation? But when we went into the past life and we went between lives, and then, when she attached, chose the parents, attached to the baby and got born. So we went through that period of time. And what she realized, she knew that she had a karmic and soul relationship with the parents, with the mother and the father. And they were arguing and they were really having a tough time. And she, in her mind, said, I want to come in and teach them love. So when I'm born, they won't fight anymore because they'll just, be loving me. But what happened, it was just a miscalculation. So her intention was really good. It was nothing to do with her karma. She was intentionally going in there for a very good, open-hearted reason. But when she was born, both parents took the anger out on her. So she became the brunt of all of
Mhm.
that rage. And so, again, learning how to make really good decisions, right? She was trying to be altruistic and come in and help them, but that one didn't work out very well.
So you're saying my bad choices and mistakes in this life, I can make bad choices and mistakes in the spirit
Mhm.
world as well.
Just keep going.
And I was looking forward to getting past those.
Yeah,
Thanks, Mary
right.
Lee.
We think that we're going to be enlightened, but
Yeah.
it's not true. If that were true, and we've had millions of lifetimes, and if we get enlightened every time, why are we in the mess we're in
Mm.
now,
Yeah,
right?
and I think that's really the core point, isn't it? If we
Yeah,
were going to be enlightened after every life, then we would use 100% of our brains and we would be traveling the universe physically as well as spiritually. Yeah,
right.
that is probably the most, and that's probably something that people forget. It's not about you go back in the spirit world and suddenly you're all great and happy and you've learned all these things and you're going, well, it's really, you may never learn your problems for millions of lives. You may never address them.
You may never, you may just continue to spiral downward. The universe is in entropy, every part of it, not just physical, all of our things deteriorate, but also our soul. And so, if we're not actively pursuing our upward spiral, growing and evolving, then we're on the down escalator and we're not, you know, trying to get ahead of it there. So,
I think I better pick my game up then.
yeah,
Um,
we all have to. We all have to. That would be a
well,
lot of help.
well, I'm interested. I mean, the next conversation we have about life purpose and core values will certainly highlight some of those differences that we might believe. So that'll be fantastic. I look forward to that.
I look forward to it also. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.